And welcome to this last licensing committee of this municipal year. Thursday the 13th of March. Do we have any apologies at all?
I've not received any apologies.
Thank you very much. Late items I have none. Any declarations of interest at all? No, thank you. Item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of January. Any comments? Move them. Thank you. Moving on then to item 5, general licensing fees. Is that Angela? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As members may recall, each year the Public Protection Service reviews its fees and charges. This makes sure that any additional costs or efficiencies of providing the services are properly reflected in delivering the service insofar as each piece of legislation allows. The proposed general licensing fees for 25-26 are contained in the appendices of the report for members' consideration. Just as a refresh, Appendix 1 sets out the proposed fees for a number of different licences, and that's everything from animals to registrations, etc. These are based on a cost recovery and inflationary costs increase. Appendix 2 sets out the proposed chargeable fees under the Gambling Act 2005. These fees are based on a cost recovery and inflationary cost increases up to a maximum permitted level. So we are able to limit some of those fees if we so wish, but we cannot go over the upper limit. Due to efficiencies made over the last 12 months, it's been possible to keep these levels of increase this year to a minimum. And in these two areas, we are obviously showing that we are supporting small businesses. Appendix 3 of your report sets out all the fees chargeable under the Licensing Act 2003. We do not have any discretion over these, as all the fees and charges are set in statute and are therefore provided for information only. The recommendations, Chair, are to approve the proposed fees and charges for 25-26 as set out in Appendix 1 and Appendix 2, and also to note the statutory fees and charges made under the Licensing Act 2003 set out at Appendix 3. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Angela. Any questions or comments? Nope. We're all happy with that then. So, move the recommendation 2.1. Yep. And 2.2 to note the fees and charges. Okay. Thank you very much. So moving on to item 6, which is taxi licensing fees and charges 25-26. Presume that's Angela again. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. The taxi licensing fees are obviously a separate element, and the report provides information on the proposed licence fees for driver, vehicle and operator licences, along with other sundry charges. These fees and charges are reviewed annually. The regime itself is self-financing and not profit-making, and must be set at a level to recover the total costs incurred in providing the service. Separate accounts must be kept for each type of licence issued, namely those for hackney carriage drivers, hackney carriage vehicles, private hire drivers, private hire operators and private hire vehicles. Fees and charges are usually set at a level to recover the full cost of providing the current taxi licensing service. However, as the ongoing reviews will have an impact on those charges, the decision has been taken to maintain the existing fees. The business of the licensing team is going through a period of change at present, and we are reviewing all the practices and procedures, and that's including any personnel changes we need to make within the team. The purpose of this is to introduce a digital platform, both corporately and business specific. So again, it will be making the journey for the customer easier. The licensing review will obviously impact on processes together with the introduction of the new digital system, but provide a smoother, cost-effective journey for applicants wishing to obtain a licence with Derby City Council. And by doing that, we're hoping also that we'll see some transitions and increase the provisions for Derby. Whilst it isn't possible to evaluate the exact impact at this time, that is why the proposed fees for the business are requested to remain as are. The effect of any changes following the review will be reflected in the taxi licensing fees for 26-27 and beyond. The proposed licence fees and charges for driver and vehicles and other charges for the next financial year are set out in Appendix 1. Before certain new fees in relation to taxi licensing can be introduced, the Council is required to publish them in a local newspaper. Any representations must be lodged within 28 days from the date of that publication. The Act provides that where a representation is made and not withdrawn, the Council must consider it. In the event of this occurring, any matters that may arise can be considered at the next scheduled meeting of the Licensing Committee, if required. The recommendations for this report, Chair, are to approve, subject to the consideration of representations, the proposed licensing fees and charges as set out in Appendix 1. To request the Service Director of Public Protection and Street Pride to advertise the proposed variation of fees. Although there is no increase to the fees, we are still required to advertise the fees. Also to delegate to the Service Director and following consultation with the Chair, to consider any representations received within the required period and to take appropriate action if required to address such representations. The fourth recommendation is to approve the new licensing fees, subject to there not being any representations. And the final recommendation is to note that there will be no increase to the fees until the review of taxi licensing is complete. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. Questions on that? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a comment really rather than a question. I think as there's a review going on into the taxi licence service at the moment, then it does make sense to freeze the charges at the moment whilst that work's undertaken, and we've got a better idea as to how things are going to look going forward. So I think that will be welcomed, particularly for by the taxi trade as well, which will make life a bit easier, and with retaining our drivers as well in mind, as we're aware that it's possible to go to other authorities, and some authorities poaching, if you like, drivers from other areas. So I think this will help us to retain our the drivers that we currently have as well at the moment. So I'd support this, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. This has probably just been a bit pedantic here on the bottom of page 4. Obviously, I know we're stating that there's no fee increase, but I don't know if this is a typo error or not. Under the replacement Hackney carriage internal signs, it obviously has current year £48 and it says proposed £48.50. So I know it's been pedantic here, it's a 50p increase, but that's an increase at the end of the day.
Thank you for pointing that out, Councillor. That is indeed an administrative error, and we will ensure that the final copy has that amended.
Thank you for that. Pointing out that error. Any further questions on that? So if I can move to the recommendations. So 2.1, without reading them out again. 2.1, happy with that. 2.2, 2.3, 2.4 and 2.5. Very good, thank you very much. So we now move on to item 7, which is Hackney Carriage Private Hire Strategy, the vehicle age and specification policy. Is that Pop or Angela?
Yeah.
Taking that, Pop, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report and the recommendations are to correct an anomaly that has arisen during the implementation of the resolution made on the 22nd of August 2019, the purpose of which was to bring into effect from the 1st of January this year provisions relating to private hire age and specification requirements. This report and recommendations are in relation to the implementation of what is now being called the 5-year-old rule for licensing private hire vehicles. The policy itself is not a matter of debate or decision today. The Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Strategy was approved by committee on the 22nd of August 2019, and this included the date that the new policy would come into effect, which was due to be the 1st of January 2025. Within that strategy, committee resolved that for private hire trade, any vehicles presented for a licence for the first time would need to be no more than a maximum of 5 years old when first presented to the council for licence. So this was only in relation to first licensing of new private hire vehicles. In 2024, officers responded to a standalone query from a member of the trade, setting out his circumstances and seeking confirmation of what the rules will be regarding the renewal of his licence and the type of vehicle that he can present. Information was provided to him which was specific to his circumstances and his vehicle. Subsequently, it was identified that the information provided to that individual was reused for other queries that had been received. Those responses were therefore inaccurate and misleading. As a result of this miscommunication, we had to review the implementation of the 5-year-old rule, and the effect of that was to suspend the application of the rule until we could return to committee and update you on the situation, and also propose a revised date of implementation, which is the 1st of April 2025. The reason for delay was because of the inaccuracies and miscommunication to members of the trade, and also to allow officers sufficient time to address the anomaly created by those who have licensed vehicles in good faith on the miscommunication and purchase replacement vehicles that are older than 5 years, to allow us time to write to any who were written to in error to clarify the licensing rule, and to put out general communication to the private hire trade formally identifying the error and correcting it. Provision has been made to licensed vehicles that have been purchased as a result of this communication. It will be a requirement that the licence holders produce evidence of registration based on the miscommunication during a window of the 1st of January 2025 and 17th of March 2025. With communication being sent out to the trade, dependent on today's decision, no later than tomorrow. Committee is recommended to note that as a result of the miscommunication with sections of the private hire trade, the provision contained at section 2, private hire vehicles, point 1 of appendix 1, have not been put into effect. To note the measures proposed to be put in place to address the anomaly, these are set out at paragraphs 4.5 and 4.6. To approve the measures proposed at paragraph 4.5 and 4.6, and in particular the new coming into effect date for the 5-year rule of the strategy for newly licensed private hire vehicles to come into effect on the 1st of April 2025. The reasons for this are to enable the anomaly detailed in paragraph 1.1 of this report to be corrected, and to enable the council as a regulator of the private high trade within its administrative area to meet its obligations to provide clear and unambiguous rules for the trade to adhere to. As a final comment to both the trade and to yourselves as committee, officers offer an unequivocal apology that the anomaly arose in the first place.
Thank you very much. Questions on that, please? Councillor Fry.
I've got a question for Pop. The minutes for August 2019, I can't see anything mentioned about the 5-year rule in the minutes. And it just clearly says it's got to be Euro 6 and 15-year rule.
Sorry, I'm just moving to the age policy. Sorry, as I'm just flicking through, have you got a paragraph reference for that?
It's published to item 1.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just flicking through. Can I come back to that one rather than just having committee just whilst I go through? If we take any other questions, and I'll come back on that one.
Councillor Upton.
Yeah, I can remember vaguely because I was at that meeting almost 5.5 years ago. But looking at the minutes of it, it says, as the committee was divided on this issue, they moved to a vote on the age restriction of licences in vehicles. The motion was carried to, it said to extent, I presume that's extend, this to 15 years old. So it's just a little bit surprising where we're suddenly talking about ignoring what was decided 5.5 years ago, and we're suddenly talking about a rapid move from 15 years to 5 years, which is going to be very difficult for all concerned.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. There's actually two issues there. Sorry, just to come back on that part of it. The age and emissions policy, as was, there's 2 age limits within it. One is a 15-year age limit for all vehicles, which then have to go through an exceptional vehicle condition check if they want to check suitability for continued licensing. So that was one element. The other element of the decision was the decision regarding newly licensed vehicles, so those being presented for the very first time, which is the 5-year rule. I am just struggling to locate it on CMIS at the moment, but I've been advised that it is within the original strategy document. But I need to have a proper read of that now.
Chair, I think under the circumstances, certainly we can't make a decision when there's such confusion. And we've got documents here which says one thing. I understand the difficulties Pop that's in. I think Pop needs the time. We need to bring this back to another committee no, okay.
As far as I am aware, it was in the original policy. And I remember it being in the original.
Chair, that is correct.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be an issue.
The age policy formed part of the strategy, which was approved in November, approved in August, and then subsequently ratified again by the same committee in November that year.
And this was included within it?
Yes, I'm just double checking, but that's where the information came from, Chair.
August 2019.
I just want to make a comment. These timeframes, what are under dispute at the moment, have got to exist because I've had people in the trade parrot them back to me in relation to this item on the agenda. Unless it was in some document, they wouldn't have known about it themselves.
Yeah, this was consulted on at the time. Everything in it was consulted upon, and there was a comment from a member of the trade on the consultation about this issue, so it was clearly there. Well, you can't make a comment about it if it wasn't there, if it didn't exist within the policy. It was within the age policy. It wasn't a specific separate vote. It was within the age policy at the time. And the age policy was voted on as a whole rather than a separate thing. Yeah, so was I.
No, sorry, we're just having a read of the
Chair,
the policy.
Chair,
If
Chair. I propose that we just adjourn the meeting for at least 10 minutes so officers can have time
Is that okay?
to have a review, and obviously it will pause the YouTube and give us a moment to have a discussion. Yeah?
Okay, we'll adjourn for 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for the adjournment, and Manju will now address the committee.
Councillors, I have had a chance to go through the report and the meeting minutes from August 2019, and the age policy was in fact mentioned within that. So a report was sent out ahead of the licensing committee, and during the committee, the report in the entirety was approved. Now, the age policy wasn't specifically discussed during the committee because it wasn't raised by any of the councillors as a concern of any nature. So during the committee, when the councillors looked at the report, no one mentioned the age policy, so therefore it was approved by default.
No.
Chair.
I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, okay.
Hold
The question is...
Hold on.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Chair, if you remember, we argued about age first. On that time, we proposed Hackney 15 years and private heart 10 years. Then we argued, had a debate. Then we agreed 15 years for both, private heart and Hackney. We never ever agreed for 5 years.
But that's
the 22nd. But we had a debate.
But that's not in the minutes. In the minutes following that committee in August 2019, that discussion isn't minuted. There's no minutes in relation to that policy.
One minute, please. Carry on talking, Manju, sorry.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying there, Councillor Sandhu, but the point is it's not within the minutes. So during that licensing committee, which was held on the 22nd of August, reference was made to the report, and the age policy is outlined within Appendix 1 of that report. So whilst I hear you say there were discussions around the age policy, they're not contained within the minutes.
It took nearly 2 hours to agree all the age limit, everything. We had a good debate, good argument, and we agreed in the end 15 years for both. We never agreed for 5 years. But that should be in the minutes. If we agreed something, that should be in the minutes, not in a separate policy.
Yeah, Councillor Sandhu, I can't comment on that. I wasn't at that committee. It's all contained within the report, and we can only go on what's in the minutes today. So, whilst, it was a few years ago, some of you may have been here during that committee, some of you may not be. We can only go by what's in the minutes, and there's no reference to that age policy within those minutes. It's all within the report that was discussed.
Okay, right. Well, I was at that meeting, and Councillor Sandhu was at that meeting, and we have the minutes of the meeting. And if you, as you suggest, if somebody wasn't at the meeting, and we were, that it wasn't discussed, it was discussed, and it makes reference in one of the final paragraphs here, as the committee was divided on this issue, so it must have been divided because it debated it.
That's not the issue that we were divided on.
Chair, with all due respect...
with all due respect, you're going off topic because that is not the issue we were divided on. We were divided on should it be 10 years or 15, and it was extended to 15 years. This is not what we are talking about. This is a separate issue that was in the
This is meant
policy.
To be a democratic meeting. You're just shouting over contributors.
I'm the chair of the meeting, and I am answering your question.
No, you're not. You're just putting in... You just
I am answering your question, if you'd let me.
It wasn't a question. It was a statement. It was a statement.
You're saying I was on that committee... No, you can't, because I'm trying to give you the answer.
I haven't finished making a statement asking the question.
I am trying to explain. You are talking about a different subject.
I haven't finished making the point. Am I allowed to make the point or not?
No, because you're talking about a different subject.
Oh, you think that might be, but I'm not. I'm talking exactly...
What are you talking about then? Because the controversy was not over this issue that is in front of us
It's an
tonight.
absolute disgrace. You're shouting over members of this committee.
Dear me. Councillor Rawson.
That was going to be my exact point, Chair. At the bottom of page 2, it says, as the committee was divided on this issue, and they were it's referring to the age restriction. As they were divided on this issue, they moved to a vote on the age restriction of licensing vehicles, and the motion was carried to extend this to 15 years old. So it seems to me that the policy was implemented against the views and wishes of the committee at that time.
And it was ratified in November.
I just need another adjournment.
Okay, councillor, so we have checked that point, and I have double checked that point as well, taking on board the comments that have been made. And it's quite clear to me that that 5-year rule was not discussed during that committee. So there was a division in opinion between councillors, but that was in relation to existing licence holders and in relation to a 10-15-year rule. There was no discussion or any division in opinion in relation to that 5-year rule. And if you look at point 3 of the minutes, it does agree the strategy as a whole, and that 5-year rule is clearly contained within that strategy that was agreed and approved during those minutes.
Are you saying minutes of November 2019 or?
August 2019.
But there's nothing there.
They are in there. It's August 2019. There was a query raised in November 2019 and the decision was ratified, and the decision on the 22nd of August was upheld.
It says here, I remember that we agreed, any vehicle under 5 years, inspection will be done every 12 months. And any vehicle over 5 years old age will be done every 6 months. That's clearly said here, not 5 years.
With respect, Councillor Sandhu, it's within the strategy, and you would have seen that strategy report during that committee meeting on the 22nd of August.
But if you look at the paragraph number 3, it clearly says 6 month inspection for over 5 years age vehicles, 12 months for under 5 years, up to. It doesn't say if you're going to replace old one with a new one, it doesn't say there it's going to be 5 years old. It doesn't say clearly. We never agreed that.
The strategy report does clearly say that, Councillor Sandhu. The strategy report does, and that report and that strategy report is what was approved during the committee.
You know, I can't call that. No, never agreed.
Yeah, the strategy report that was agreed, why isn't it agreed in the minutes? State.
It is agreed
I can't
in the
see it
minutes.
anywhere.
It's agreed at point number 3. At point number 3, within the minutes, it says the strategy report is agreed.
Where? Can't see it. See it?
Would you like to read what it says?
Yes, I can do, Chair. And I just want to draw committee members' attention to the Appendix 1 of that meeting, where the wording is clarified. It's top of page 13 of Appendix 1 is where the 5-year rule was quoted. And then I just want to refer to the minutes of the meeting, which is point 3, where it says, if I start from the header, resolved to, at point 3, agree the proposed final taxi and private hire vehicle strategy 2020 as set out at Appendix 2, subject to the policy being amended to state, and then it just goes on in relation to MOT. The key thing here is that point that I've just referred to within the appendix on page 13 reads, only private hire vehicles under 5 years of age from the first date of first DVLA registration will be considered for first licensing.
Okay, so we are accepting that 2 officers, a legal officer and the chair, are saying that that was approved within the age policy. And moving on to the recommendations.
We as a Labour group are not agreeing with this recommendation. If
the rule goes same as Hackney carriage, why the rule can't be same with the private hire? Why 5 years for private hire?
Excuse me, Chair. When he makes
It's
a reference
the
to the
issue-
Labour group, are we meant to be all as independent, non-politically aligned members here, please?
The issue is, this is already in train, it's already in motion. The only reason it has come back here tonight is because of an oversight by somebody who they have apologised for. That's the only reason it's back. Otherwise, this would all be going through. It already has started to go through. It's not something that can be all of a sudden changed. It's accepted. It was voted on. All we are doing is adding a few months on to give everybody a fair chance due to a officer oversight. It was within the policy. It was voted upon within the policy. The consultation went out and remarks were made about this particular thing. So it had to be there for that to happen. That is not what we are debating tonight. We're not re-debating that decision.
Can I just reiterate that point as well, councillors? So this element of the policy, well, the entire policy actually, should have come out and been enforced from the 1st of January 2025. So 2 elements of that policy have already gone through and are already live and active. It's just this 5-year rule. So like the Chair has said today, that we're not here to debate whether or not it should come in place. What we're here to approve is the date that it comes into place.
Councillor Hudson.
Am I right in thinking that if we do not vote this through this evening, we're going to have exactly the same policy that has been previously agreed and is ready to go, but with the misleading words and the ambiguous wording which has caused this problem to start with?
Yes, the whole issue is just to simply, it's a simple thing. I don't know why it's becoming a massive issue.
So if this doesn't get voted through, we're stuck with the original version with the incorrect wording.
And then no drivers will know where they are or what they're supposed to be doing. So it's to clarify.
The only matter for your consideration this evening should be, do you agree for this policy to go active on the 1st of April 2025? That's the only consideration today.
Chair, we agree with everything else, but not with 5 years
Right, okay.
limit.
Councillor Repton next. Thank you.
There's certainly confusion amongst many of the committee here this evening. I'm certainly confused about, when you refer to item 3, that is about, the 5 years is relating to about inspections, which is understood and accepted, completely understood, about either 6 months or 12 months. 4.2 of tonight's meeting is talking about the 5 years applying to any vehicles about getting a licence in the first place. So the way I'm reading this is 2 completely different things. And this is what's worrying a lot of people here and outside of this room. And this is where the confusion is arising.
The only person who's confused is you, because we keep repeatedly telling you.
You're wrong, Chair. All my colleagues have just said they're confused as well.
Who else is confused?
You're not sharing it. You're not sharing.
It is not up for debate anymore, because I don't understand your issue at all. I don't understand. You've been. Yes,
everybody has raised the same issue with you. You're not listening. That's the problem.
Can you please not speak to me like that? We are listening. We've had 2 adjournments, and every officer has told you it was in that policy and it was voted upon. So
I've told you that there's confusion between item 3, which refers to inspections every 6 months or 12 months and by the 5-year rule, but 4.2 it seems to refer to something completely different. At the very least, there's confusion if they're not contradictory. And it's not just me. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, about half a dozen councillors in this room this meeting equally confused. And you're not addressing that. You're just attacking personally, and that is not acceptable in this chamber. chamber.
I'm not attacking anybody personally at all. Who have I attacked? Who have I attacked?
Verbally attacked me and other people in this chamber. You refused to
I
take
have
questions
not.
in this chamber. You've been condescending in your replies. It's not acceptable.
Councillor, I don't
Chair,
know
can
your
we have
name.
the vote on this, please, so we can move on with the agenda? I just don't want to sit here all day. Thank you.
Chair, if I just take one more attempt to explain the conflation between the decision. So again, looking at the minutes of that meeting at point 3, it's the very first part of that paragraph and decision, which is agree the proposed final taxi and private hire vehicle strategy 2020 as set out at Appendix 2. The element that Councillor Repton refers to is subject to the policy being amended. The reading of that is that the policy is accepted as set out, with the only amendment being in relation to the MOTs. So that element of the 5-year age policy has been accepted. The MOT element is a separate issue. The fact that it was not debated, as Manju has said, from a legal perspective, the fact that that point within the policy was not debated by default means it's accepted.
Yes. Mr. Gill, it clearly says here in the 3, okay, you're saying you agreed. We never agreed in the minutes. That should be in the minutes if we agreed. Chair was there. She was chairing at the same time. Chair was chairing. We never had a debate on. We agreed on 5 years. This is paragraph 3 says inspection under 5 years every 12 months. Over 5 years every 6 months. That clearly says here. That's what we agreed. Agreed to propose final taxi and private hire vehicles strategy 2020 as set out Appendix 2, subject to the policy being amended to state all licensed vehicle 5 years old or under from the date of first DVLA registration will be subject to 12 monthly. That says 12 monthly under 5 years.
Sorry, Councillor, but that is only in reference to the MOT inspections. It's the first part of that decision, as is the first part of point 2, which again is agree the proposed final taxi and private hire vehicle strategy as set out at Appendix 2. I think the point we are getting stuck on is that within that policy document, as I say, at top of page 13 that was presented, point 1 is only private hire vehicles under 5 years of age from the date of first DVLA registration will be considered for first licensing. That's not in relation to the MOTs. That's a standalone, any new vehicle being presented for licensing. It's not in the minutes because it wasn't debated. So anything within the policy that is not debated is by default accepted.
The officer made a decision and the committee doesn't know anything.
No. From my reading, and I will take a legal lead on this, if a member of the committee had raised a point regarding the 5-year rule, it would have been minuted as a debate. But because it was not raised, by default, there is no objection to that 5-year rule. It stands when the policy is accepted.
That's right, yeah. So the opportunity to discuss that 5-year rule and to object to that 5-year rule was in 2019. That's not an option today. So we can only minute what we discuss in a committee. So after today's committee, we can't minute what hasn't been discussed. That's the purpose of minutes. So during that committee in August, there was no discussion around that specific age policy, which is why it wasn't minuted. Yeah. Councillor Sandra, I take your point, but this isn't something that's been implemented overnight. It's not a sudden change. It's been in place since 2019. The only thing for discussion today is we're recommending, well, licensing team's recommending and proposing that 5-year rule come into play on the 1st of April 2025. That's the only thing that should be up for discussion today. It's not a case of we're not voting on passing this policy. This policy has already been passed.
Councillor Cron.
It says, Appendix 2, subject to a policy being amended to state from 1st of January 2025, all newly vehicles will be required to be minimum of Euro 6 diesel. Yeah? So in these minutes, there's no way we can find that 5-year strategy that's been proved and passed. That should be mentioned in the minutes.
Councillor Khan, I'm sorry, I don't know how many more times I can reiterate the point that the reason it's not in the minutes is because it wasn't discussed. I don't know how many more times I can reiterate that point.
I want to put amendment to this recommendation, which I won't be supporting.
It can't be amended. It's already been approved by this committee. So you can't amend something that's already been approved. All we are doing here is changing the date from the 1st of January to the 1st of April. That's it.
Chair,
So do you propose a different date? Because that's all that we're doing here is choosing dates. We're not amending the policy. The policy has been approved and it's been out to consultation, and we are just simply changing the date.
I feel that more time should be given to them because I feel if in our city, if we got the same policy for hackney carriage, why not the same policy for private hire?
That isn't up for debate. You should have debated that at the time.
I wasn't on that committee, was I?
Well, I can't help that you weren't on committee at the time. It's been approved. We can't go back on that. That is not what we are here to do tonight. We are simply here to change the date of an already approved policy.
Okay, yeah. Can we change then the date from 25 to 2030?
What for? What reason?
Give some more time to...
They've had 5 years already. They've had 5 years. Everybody knows about this.
Yeah, we know
They've
that.
had 5 years. So this
Yeah,
is
you just said we are here to change the date or whatever. So that's what I'm proposing.
simply because of an administrative error, not because they haven't had enough time to get a new car.
I think 2030 will be...
I just want to make a point here about that specific date. From a legal point of view, I wouldn't support or I wouldn't recommend any further extensions, because you will have stakeholders that have actually gone out and tried to comply with this specific deadline, and they've acted in good faith on the miscommunication. So from a constitutional point of view, we want to get back to a consistent state as soon as possible and implement the policy that was agreed 5 years ago.
There are many drivers who have been out and bought and followed this policy and been ready by the 1st of January. It is very unfair if we've made them do that and we change the date further. We are changing the date merely to help those who have got stuck in being told the wrong information, which is about 2 drivers that it might affect, and that's it. It's just a simple change of date to help those 2 drivers that were given the wrong information. That is what we're here for.
Chair, you're saying that many drivers have bought their vehicles. Have we got a list of vehicles, new vehicles that have been bought last 5-year-old vehicles that are complying with this new policy?
Sorry, Chair. I would just draw members' attention to paragraph 4.6 of the report, which sets out the potential impacts. 158 licence holders between 1st of January and 31st of March who were misinformed. 11 of them have vehicles that are over 15 years of age and may be affected by the omission of information. So we are talking really 11 individuals who may purchase a new vehicle during this window. And bear in mind that's private hire only, it's not for Hackney.
So why is it the same for Hackney and private hire, same rule book?
That I cannot comment on as to what was debated back when the original policy was agreed.
Sorry, Chair, I just thought it's important to probably put on the record that actually, if there hadn't been this administrative error, this policy would already be in place. It would have been in place in January. We are here to simply set right a slight administrative error on a policy that would already be enacted. So there are certain members of this committee who are getting quite hysterical over something that would already be in place, and we're here to basically set right a council administrative error. That is what we are here to do. We have wasted 30 minutes debating a policy that was agreed in 2019, nearly 6 years ago. I'm sorry, if there are certain members of this committee, you should have been paying attention at the time, quite frankly, or your colleagues should have been paying more attention at the right time and raised it back then. So if we can please move along to the recommendations, that would be much appreciated.
Right, okay, thank you for that. So I will move to the recommendations. So recommendations 2.1, to note as a result of miscommunication with sections of the private hire trade, the provision contained at section 2, private hire vehicles, point 1 of appendix 1, have not been put into effect. (2.2) to note the measures proposed to be put in place to address the anomaly set out at paragraphs 4.5 and 4.6 of this report. 2.3 to approve the measures proposed at paragraph 4.5 and 4.6, and in particular the new coming into effect date for application of the strategy to newly licensed private hire vehicles of the 1st of April.
Chair, you're probably saying for or against, isn't it? You've taken the points, we know how many for and how many against.
It's not supposed to be a vote, it was they were to note items. They weren't a vote. Are you still going to argue that it's not in a strategy? How many times do you want telling that it was...
I still feel that if we got one rule for Hackney carriage, the same rule should apply for the private hire.
It's not up for debate. That is not what recommendation 2.3 is saying. That's not what 2.3 is saying. You're voting on that recommendation. Okay, so in 2.3, who is in favour of 2.3? And who's against? Of the people who are against, why are you against 2.3? Well, because the people who weren't at that meeting should be just listen to what everybody said and voted for it.
No.
Sorry, could I just ask, so the people that are against, what would you propose instead? Because this policy not being implemented is not an option. The only option that you have is, will it be implemented on the 1st of April this year? And if you don't agree with that, then what do you propose, what date do you propose it be implemented on?
We are saying that the pressures that this trade is having, and the drivers and the... Chair, I'm just making a statement. Yeah, we need to take into account that the cost of a vehicle is 25,000 pound plus insurance. I think these things have to be taken into account. All right, we're not debating the policy, that's fine, but I think that error that has been made and the trade is going to have an impact on the trade.
Councillor Khan, the trade were aware of this policy in 2019. They had 5 years to prepare for this 5-year rule. They've had 5 years. To their knowledge, this policy should have been implemented on the 1st of January. All we're doing today, in essence, we've given them an extra 2 months.
I think what's caused the confusion is the administrative error, which has then been interpreted perhaps by some as a change in policy or a different policy in existence. So that's what's caused the issue, Chair.
Okay, I was trying to help, but I still can't help. So 2.3 has been approved by 8 votes to 7. Thank you. We're not finished yet. John? No. Item 8 is the forward plan.
Thank you, Chair. This report is for noting and refers to a proposal to implement what's termed as a forward plan. The forward plan will have a two-pronged effect. Firstly, it will show the path of any mainstream policies, either statutory or existing, which are planned to be put through committee over the coming municipal year. Obviously, there will be additional subject-specific reports that will need to be considered along the way, and these will be listed on the agenda in the usual way. Introducing a forward plan hopefully will help to keep the committee focused on the future business and prepare them for what may come later on. The second element is to start a formal training session before each committee is convened. The session will be 30 minutes long and will highlight subjects that are in the government or commercial pipeline and that may or may not have an effect on licensing at some stage or, in fact, to some degree. It's planned that the first session will be around the new tobacco and vapes bill, which will have an effect on the licensing regime as it is highlighted in the bill itself. Future